children were weak and hungry, I took you to my bosom, fed you my oil. And even when you took and wasted and left me drained, there was always love for you in my soil. Even when my older children, they tried to shame me, setting no rules for the younger ones, bringing such grief and sadness into my household. In the end, they're still my daughters and sons. I will always be there for you. No matter what you do, whatever joy or pain that you are going through, I will always be there for you. I will be always there for you.
And of course, we will always be here for you also.
My older children, they try to shake.
And that is why we are here right now on New Era TT Radio, as we welcome you inside another edition. As we go on at the inside with Steve Williams, courtesy the Foundation for Human Development on a day like today, Wednesday. Yeah, they graciously lend Steve to us, and we are so appreciative of that because of all the information that he continues to share all throughout the years. Steve, great morning to you, my friend. How are you?
I am good, thank God for that. A little sad this morning, because life goes on. A good colleague of mine passed away yesterday,
Oh,
and we went for years. We were in the same business in the Ministry of Education, and I don't. You always say don't expect the person to go. That kind of
yeah.
But it is what life is. And so, it was a morning of a little sadness for me, a lot of reflection on our relationship together in terms of work and the kinds of things that we did for children and education and so on. So it got me to that mood, that pensive, passive kind of a mood. So I'm out of it now, not for long. I will go back into it.
I'm not going to tell you that you're going to be out of it because you're getting to do stuff. But once you go back into a quiet moment, it flows like a river straight back inside of there.
And every thought comes up, whether, what is life about? When somebody your age group goes, you say, well, when is my turn? This kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's the journey we are on. But may God bless and rest her soul.
Well,
I hope
my condolences to you and, of course, to his family and everybody else.
Thank you. So, I want to continue the discussion from last week on the whole concept of shame. And I thought I would start off by sharing my shame story. There's several in my life, but the earliest one that I can remember is a story I've shared before when I was at school, and how that shame story has affected me for lifetime. It was a school in which we had, I was in what you call a bright class. In those days, many, many moons ago, you had standard 5A, and you're in the A class, and you're supposed to be bright. And this long ago, you had inspectors, they call them supervisors now. And this inspector came and he wanted to do some work with the standard 5 class. So he went on the blackboard and he put up a sum. In those days, they were called sums, not maths, or sums. And he put a sum up on the board. And one of those tie-up sums, if 10 men take 5 hours to do something, how long will it take 8 men, or some story like that with a little twist in it. I could remember. And we all sat down there in the class and everybody's working at it and so on. And people got up and gave their answers, and answers were all wrong. And the teacher who feels that, who felt at the time, quite embarrassed about the fact that none of his star pupils could work this somehow. He went downstairs to a standard 3 student and brought the standard 3 student up and asked the standard 3 student to work out the sum. And the standard 3 student came and worked out the sum quite correctly. So the inspector stopped the entire school and paraded this little boy on top of the stage and said he was a star future person for this country. And this is the kind of thing he's talking about, and dedication to hard work and so on. And the little boy was clapped and praised and so on. And then he went back down to his seat. And when the inspector left, the teacher beat everybody in the class. Everybody got licks for not being able to work out the sum. So I said, okay, I took my licks. And in those days, you take your licks, but you have to show that you don't cry, right? You have to show you don't cry. You put out your hand and you take your licks and so on. The little boy was my brother. And he was the one who came up and worked out the sum. So you can imagine what lunchtime would have been like for me, with all my friends and everybody laughing at me and telling me how come your little brother could do it and you can't do it and so on. And that was one form of shame. So it just, if it was that alone, I might have gotten over it. The second form of shame was that the teacher was my father. And the teacher didn't leave the shame in the school. The teacher took the shame home and to extended family. So my grandmother, when I went by her this Saturday, we usually go by her on the Saturday to carry sweetbread and so on. She was telling me about how I could do that and how I could let my little brother, and he's a bright boy, and I need to study my work more, and I'm not studying enough work, and so on and so on and so on. And the shame was within the context of the family. The shame was in the context of the school. So there is no getting away. You can't run, you can't hide. And the shame had long-lasting consequences. I would say from then on, I was not really able to do maths. Now, can you imagine that? There was something that triggered, that hit me, that was a fear in me to actually do work. I went to secondary school. I struggled with maths. I had to beg my parents to give me maths lessons, and I still didn't do well. I don't even know if to know up to date. I think I got, in those days they had numbers 9 and 8 and 7 and 6. I think I must have gotten a 4 or 3 or something. I didn't even know what it was, but it wasn't a good pass, if it was a pass at all. And so I never had confidence in myself when it came to the question of mathematics. But it didn't stay there. It went right through my whole academic career. My entire academic career was one in which I felt I was never good enough or bright enough. Always felt that. And despite doing well at school and being placed in what they call, when I went to college, I was placed in 1X, which is the group with the smart boys and so on. I still never felt that I was a strong academic person able to conduct myself. I always felt less than. And that came out of that whole concept of being shamed. And I'm just pointing out how insidious and how deep such a feeling can go to someone, and therefore how it affects their entire being. This happens to so many young men and young women today, in the way that sometimes we don't even know why. A lot of parents don't even know that they're shaming their children and bringing their children to a point where this shame becomes an underlying and undermining factor in their well-being as they go forward in life. Dr. Brené Brown, and I who did a lot of research on shame, and she's the lady who did most of the research on shame. She pointed out the difference between men and women and how men and women experience shame differently. She did the research. She said with women, the research says the primary trigger in terms of power and so on with women is appearance. They feel the most shame about size, weight, beauty, or young enough. I say no more, and it is quite true. If you want to shame a woman deeply, shame them, go to any one of those areas. The size, weight, the beauty. Just say you're not nice. That girl spends forever trying to make herself attractive. Because she's being told and shamed in childhood, in adolescence, she's not nice enough, she's not beautiful, she's not attractive. So on. Big thing. She said in the research, motherhood was a close second. She says a lot of women experience shame around the idea and concept of motherhood. They may be asked, so you're 40, you ain't get married yet? Why you don't have children? You're married for so many years and you have no children? In other words, because we as a society bring up women in a particular way, sometimes shame comes out of the fact that they have not produced offspring. I've had the opportunity to guide women through this experience because times have changed now. Long ago, that was a natural way of demonstrating your sense of femininity and your sense of well-being. When you're a woman, you have a child. That was long ago. Now, many women place career achievement and success as primary areas for development. So they place that and they get to 35 and they get a big job and they have the car and their apartment and so on. And then the window starts to close a little bit. It gets to 38 and there's no child, and 39 and so on. And then they begin to look for marriage if they're not married yet, or a partner that could father and foster this child. And so when they struggle with it and it can't happen, biologically or otherwise, there is an intense weeping, intense shaming that they have to live with. And that's just how it is. I'm not saying that it happens for everybody, but that's how it is. So for a lot of people, for a lot of women, research says that they have to have these important attributes of being feminine, which is nice, pursuing a thin body ideal, caring for children, keeping and holding on with sexual intimacy, and so on. So many women are shamed into their livelihood, into their being, because they have not lived up to the expectations of society or the world. And it's difficult for them. Men, however, see shame a little differently. She says, for men, is the issue of sexuality, being in bed, and performance. And usually it's a big joke when men get together and they may joke about it. Nobody talks the truth about it, but everybody jokes about it. So failure of being able to perform sexually with a woman for whatever reason brings intense shame because we have been cultured and conditioned to think that our manhood is tied to our sexual performance. And if we don't do well in that area, we're not men. And that is part of the shame. So some men go through intense shaming because of that, and there may have been medical or biological reasons, especially when you get later on into your 40s and 50s, and things don't work as well as they used to before, and there are opportunities that would create shaming for you. It develops in you a lack of confidence in yourself, and it has turned people into all kinds of behaviors, drinking, liming, late kind of behaviors, avoidance of sex where possible because you don't want to fail again, you don't want to be ridiculed, you don't want your partner to say, hey boy, you know what we say, okay? So it is a big area of shame for the male. Work is another area of shame for males, but I see people, men need to work. We're conditioned to think that we have a responsibility for bringing home the so-called bacon and taking care of, protecting and providing. It creates a sense of shame when we can't do that for many men. For many men, a sense of shame also comes up in terms of sports and the football field, or the cricket field, or the hockey field, or the basketball court. It is where, when you fail at any of those areas, you feel the shame. And we're not nice, we're not a nice people. We are very critical people. We judge harshly. And it's because we do that and we laugh at people when they don't do very well. Shame becomes part of who we are. And avoidance behavior is huge because sometimes we begin to behave in certain ways because we don't want to be shamed. We don't want to be shamed. Or sometimes we choose behaviors like rationalizing and hiding and apologizing and so on, all because we are afraid of trying our best to become or to stand up proud. You see, we have this concept of perfection. We have this concept that we must always be fairly perfect and not imperfect at all. And of course, men are not allowed to be afraid. We're not allowed to show fear. We're not allowed to be vulnerable. We're not allowed to get into those things. When we get into those things, it gets difficult for us. So because we're not allowed to be afraid and we're not allowed, we harbor those emotions deep inside of us. We harbor the embarrassment, the hurt, the fear, and then we put these things out. We project them in forms where we blame other people and where we hurt other people instead of actually coming to terms with our own emotions. So all these things are ways in which we have to confront ourselves. So the way through shame and the way through it, I didn't say the way around it or the way over it or underneath it. The way through it is really through it. One must admit where one feels the emotion. Okay? One must admit where the pain is. The fact that you have been embarrassed, you've been hurt, you've been shamed. You must work with it. You must become part of it in your life. You must hold on to it. And then you move out of it. When you own it, it's only then when you own it that you can get rid of it in a sense. If you could use that word, get rid of. But when you own it, you can begin to let it slide gently out of your system. You can even bring a sense of humor to it, In order to do that, we need to have what I call spaces sacred spaces where people can speak openly about their depression, their anxiety, their fears, their addictions. Um, Many people who go for counseling, um, the majority of the people are women. Um, they come and they say, this is a problem. They're open about it. They're uncomfortable about the relationship this way or that way. They see themselves in a particular light in relationship, especially when it has to do with matters of sexuality and so on. They're willing to explore it. They're willing to look at their side, the other side, and so on. The men hardly come. They always say, well, that is a waste of time. Counseling is a waste of time. I could handle my stories. They always say that. So if I call in for Mr. Williams, I can handle my stories, Can't handle anything. We are fearful, we are ashamed, and we are unable to admit where we're hurting. We're unable to say, I'm having a real hard time in being with this person. I am uncomfortable. My mind is this, my head is this, and so on. So for many of us, we have to go through the shame. We have to find a space, a comfortable space with someone where we can literally express this pain, express this hurt, so that when we become vulnerable and we open ourselves up, the healing begins. The healing can only begin with vulnerability, even in the Christian scriptures, when it came to healing, Jesus always said, what do you want me to do for you? In other words, open up, tell me, and then he says, then I will do this, I will do that. So you have to commit yourself to your own healing and to your vulnerability. In a sense, it took me a long time to become vulnerable. I had to wait years and years before I had to go to see a counselor myself to begin to admit those areas of pain and hurt and shame throughout my childhood and adolescence and so on that seemed to have governed and conditioned my behavior, my approach to people, my attitude to people, and so on. So I'll pause there and allow people to comment on the whole question of their own shame to some extent and how they've overcome it.
All right, so people, now is a good time for you to call us. You can get in on the show, 281-1315. That's 281-1315. According to where you are located, you may have to put in the 868 to get us, but you can get us. All right, so call us. You can regular call us, or you can WhatsApp call us. So while we wait on the call, Steve, you can continue, talking about this whole thing of shame. I guess at some point in time we have all either felt that shame or people have done that to us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
We all have.
Yeah.
It's a time in our lives when we're not proud about. Think about when and there's big shame and small shame in a sense. You're going to your first party. Well, that long ago, we asked a girl to dance, and she said, nah, she ain't dancing with you. And then somebody else come and ask, and she say yes. I mean, come on. You want to know something wrong with you?
Yes.
You feel shame.
Yes. I've been there. I've been there a long time. Yeah.
Yeah. You say, God, was he smelling or something? And you begin to doubt your own physical self. I'm not nice then. I'm not nice looking. All kinds of things happen when we are, and that's small shame. And sometimes when you have that small shame, then is when you try to adjust and you say, me going back there again, and she this and she that, and you try to put it off and so on. But for many of us, we have to manage those little things because when the shame comes in, when your partners laugh at you,
Oh yes, and constantly remind you of it.
It's when your partners laugh at you Then the shame comes. But otherwise you think you're quiet in a little corner and so on. All these things happen to a lot of people. And shame also comes, men are shamed even more when women shame them.
Yeah.
There are women who shame men badly. And they can shame you badly in terms of your sexuality. And they say, that's what you coming with for me? No, 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 no. Me able with that and so on and so on. And no men, I've sat with men who cringe at the mere thought of having a relationship because their first relationship was so shameful. The woman shamed them.
Yeah, that is really something else, and some people do it. But most people like who do that to people, what are they about? Are they just mean individuals or what?
No, they're about
What is it?
themselves. They're about themselves. They're just as wounded as everybody else because you're conditioned to certain things. You have to remember, all our sense of being comes from a lot of other sources. Your understanding of sexuality comes from pornography. Your mother and father don't put you to sit down at the age of 10 or 9 or 11 and say, the most beautiful thing you'll ever experience in life, one of the most beautiful things is sex. It's a wonderful energy. And when you share it with someone, you feel good, it's intimate. And so nobody put you to sit down and tell you that. They tell you all the things that you could do wrong. Get somebody pregnant, get STDs. In other words, before you actually emerge as a positive person with your sexual energy, you're told it's a bad thing. That's shame, You're told it's a bad thing. And that's how some of us, that's what I'm trying to get at, that for a lot of things, and sometimes in studies, and not just sexuality, in other areas too, we are shamed conditionally so that we're no longer able to do well, let's say, and we hide.
But I find it's always a hard lesson because I have encountered people who would go out and like if it strengthens their character and by embarrassing others,
Yes.
But we have a call coming in here.
Okay, sure.
Junior, good morning.
Good Charles, yes, and good morning, Mr. Steve. Good morning to
Good
you.
morning. Yes.
Good Charles, your phone line, I think got me. You know how long I trying to call you?
But I'm right here. I'm watching the phone.
No, actually, I must be called about 2 times. I didn't get on to you.
It had nobody on the line, and I was watching the phone just like I'm watching it now.
So we must do every now and again. Take off your phone once you're not using it.
Yeah, and
get
reboot
about,
it.
5 minutes,
Yeah.
and you're going to reboot it back up.
Yeah, I will do that.
Right. So, Mr. Steve, interested as an interested topic. I'm now a dilemma call to where I'm such as because I was, expecting that people would have, call in and participate, because I think it's interesting topic. Life, it deal with life. And Mr. Steve, I think again, it all come back dealing with our culture, right? Now, shaming can be good and bad in one sense, right, Mr. Steve and Sir Charles? Right? Because now, shaming, as we say, right? Nobody likes to feel shame, right? And even in some people being shamed, some people react really differently. Strange sometimes, violent sometimes, because they're feeling shame, right? I mean, even when you look at the situation that's playing out now in the politics, right? I think with Mr. Stuart Young, people might say, well, why a bit shame and a bit disgrace, meet out. So again, the culture, right? So we're shaming on different levels that one has to go through. Right? So but what I say it can be good or bad, right? True and shaming sometimes you learn to find yourself. So again, and here what I'm saying, again, is based on how the person deal with it and how the person look at it. When you all took the call there, so I was asking a question, and rightfully Mr. Steve answered the question, right? Now, it are some people, because of there, some people will shame you just because them don't want to be them dead, right? So they want to be the focus, right? But they want to be the focus, so they will pick on you then. So I've seen people pick on people that is obese and
Yes.
make fun of that person, and everybody laugh, but when you look at it, and I'm saying, well, why you would go to that length? Okay, the person fat. Why would you go to that length to make fun of the person? Right? I mean, again, and then, I mean, even from small growing up too, friends like, there's this girl, and man, they will bad talk you and come down on you and try to make you feel bad because they're trying to make themselves look good.
Yes,
So
yes.
then what do you do? Right? But I have learned it, right? Such as I just stutter. Right? I mean, from small, I had to learn to be heckled to that. Right? But you know what? I come to accept, all right, I just stutter. Right? There's a reason why I stutter. Right?
Right.
But I have learned, you know what? Overcome this fear. So I will call the radio program and I will talk even though I stutter. Right? I'm not going to let this disability limit me, because
Correct.
this is just a part of who I am. Right? So I challenge that. I say, you know what? Hey, I am greater than this, and regardless of what people say or people think that I should be, because sometimes they want to put you in a box, right? But again, you could overcome on challenges. So that I say it could be good or bad. It depends on how the individual use it for, right? Yes, people
Right.
could try to again. Mr. Stewart Young, I mean, I like how he handling, I mean, the public pressure. He's staying quiet. He's of course he would be hurt. He's a man, right? And you
That's
have feelings
right.
and you have emotions. But Mr. Steve, one of the things though, I want to say, even as the man, and I know that you would say it there, even with this whole sexuality in terms of men, men performing and underperforming, there it has too much knowledge outside there, right? That you could go because if you could go and apply the knowledge, right? Because that could be different reasons why you might be underperforming, or because
Correct. Yes.
it could be a poor diet. Right?
Yes.
It could be sometimes some people have some disease, and you just might have to take necessary precautions in order to treat with that. Right? So there's a
Yes.
number of things, and it come back down to education. And sometimes to be shame, and sometimes your whole sex life you wanna thing, and then you start to drink, and then you start to feel
That's
no,
right.
and again sometimes, Mr. Steve, in our Muslim culture, the sex is overrated. Such as our Steve
Yes. Yeah.
All right, Junior. Thank you.
It's overrated.
Yes. All right, okay, no problem. Yeah, but this is a very interesting topic. I remember there was an individual, that when we were working at Power years now, I was actually doing a show with him, and he made a remark on air, to berate me, and I didn't say anything about it then. I just let it slide, thing. But after the because that was the way that he does things. He speaks to people in that kind of way. He feels like he has to bring down somebody to look good.
Yeah, yes, yeah. There are many people like that. They
Yeah.
have to bring you down so they could be on top.
Yeah, so I waited until after the show, and when we were walking out of the studio, and I pressed him in a corner, and I say, why do you feel that you have to do that to people? I said, I didn't appreciate that. He said, well, I didn't know, and I thought it was a joke, you know what I mean? And at least he knew, and that never happened again, you know. But some people do things and feel it's okay to do things to people. Which
Really,
yeah, I find
that's
it's
how they
very
feel.
insensitive.
That's how they operate. Yeah, very insensitive.
Yeah.
Very, very, very insensitive.
Yeah. All right, well, I had a call. I was waiting to see if it was coming back in, but it did not. So I think we can wrap
You're
it at this
probably
point.
having some problems with the phone. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So
All right.
let's tell people how to get in contact with you, Steve.
Sure. Foundation for Human Development. Our focus is human development. We are at Cascade, physically located at 36 Cascade Road, Cascade, not too far from the School for the Deaf. And we can be reached via email at foundationhd@gmail.com, or you can get us WhatsApp or phone 482-6500.
Okay, but Steve, thank you very much, and God's willing, next week we'll do it all over again.
I remember when you
Yeah, sure.
All right, people, this has been On the Inside with Steve
I took
Williams,
you to my bosom,
courtesy of the
fed you my
Foundation
oil.
for Human Development, right here on New Era
And
TT
even when you took
Radio.
and wasted and left me drained, there was always love for you in my soil. Even when my older children, they tried to shame me, setting no rules for the younger ones, bringing such grief and sadness into my household. In the end, they're still my daughters and sons. I will always be there for you. No matter what you do, whatever joy or pain that you are going through, I will always be there for you. I will be always there for you. Everybody always called me a blessed mother. Mama Trini, God must love you, they'd say. Hello, high water, I would just rise and embrace you, protecting my children in every way. Even when you fight and argue about different fathers, remember the middle passage brought